Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to look at some of the features of Paperbase that might help you in doing historical research on some of these papers. Now, strictly speaking, anything might help, but there are some tools inside of Paperbase that you're far more likely to use if you are, really digging deep on a particular manufacturer or brand or something like that, right? So to begin with, you probably will want to start in the filter panel just because, if you're interested in a particular era or a particular manufacturer or brand, this is where you would select it. So, for example, if we are, like, let's say we're interested in looking at these packages of paper, right? And then let's say we're interested in Agfa Gewehrt. Okay, so now we've sort of narrowed our search. So we have 188 papers now. These are packages of paper from Agfa Gewehrt, which in itself is already interesting, right? Before Agfa was a company, Gewehrt was a company. Now they're the same company. So that's already kind of historically interesting, and that might be something that you want to look more deeply into. And so we could start there. And let's just start by adding these to the panel. The panel is going to be nice because in the panel, we can drill down and look at the details of these items. So here, we're less interested maybe in these kind of collection-wide patterns among the various, measured quantities like thickness and gloss and whatever, and maybe a little more interested in looking at the specific kind of metadata details of these samples, right? And so we have them here. So this is kind of interesting. Okay, a lot of Agfa Gewehr, and we can see the years and all that. But maybe let's start by looking at some of these packages. We know that these are all packages of paper. None of these are in sample books. So we're now getting kind of like a quick look at what some of these package images look like, right? And this is kind of an interesting one. This must be. Oh, this is interesting. Um, this is Agfa Gewehrt Portriga Rapid, and then it's this Kodak box that says Codabromide, but written on it is Portriga Rapid. So Paul must have purchased this box of paper, and what's inside of it is in fact Portriga Rapid, as is written here. But they used a Kodak box, so that's kind of an interesting case. Okay, and now back to, let's get rid of this one. Okay, so and another case. This is also interesting. Yeah, Agfa Gewehr Record Rapid. Um, that's funny. Um, but maybe this is whoever he bought it from only had these Kodak. So that's interesting in itself, and you should ask Paul about that. But we can get rid of these just so we're looking at just Agfa. So one thing right away is if you were doing like a historical study of the design of these packages, Agfa Gewehr is using this orange and red color, right? So Kodak obviously staked out yellow. But this color, and they're not all like that, right? We have a lot of so this sort of like just plain brown look, brown kind of packaging paper here. But we see that same red appear in the label, and so and you can start to see, the different colors that we might observe here. Um, and we can see, for example, like these in the 1990s tend to be this slightly different color in the 70s, and maybe it just age. Maybe the these packages from the 70s started out this color but aged over time. Photo aging of these packages. It looks like the lighter colored ones tend to be older, right? These are from the 60s, and then the ones from the 90s tend to be a little brighter. So maybe that's what happened, or maybe Agfa chose a new color, right? But so we're starting to get a sense of this. And when you're very interested in the kind of details of these things, it makes sense to open up the detail panel. And let me do that again just so you saw how I did it. When I mouse over one of these items, you can see it better here. Here, we have this expand arrow. that says open detail panel. And when you open it, it opens to that package. And now we can either click these arrows on the screen with the mouse, or we can use the arrow keys on our keyboard to move between these various packages, right? And so here, we can't see them all at once, but as we see each one, we can see it a lot more closely. There's a lot of markings on these, and so if you end up being sort of interested in some of the things that are written on here, you can see these, right? That's probably less interesting than seeing written markings on an artwork, of course, because who knows, these just came from some person who owned them, right? So maybe not particularly interesting. But there's other things on here too. Obviously, these labels are very interesting to look at, and we don't, we've recorded a lot of this data from the label into our kind of database, but not all of it. And so some of it is only captured in these images. And if we want to get a closer look at these images, what we do is we can just click on them. So this is a pretty big view, right? This is full screen, but this is not the full size of the image. These are massive images, right? These are taken with a very high resolution camera. So if you click on it, what it does is it opens a full-size version in a new tab. And now we can see we have this little, magnifying glass here. And now we can click on this label and see here, this is how big the image really is, right? So now we're kind of looking at all this stuff, and we see here this product will be replaced, and we can see this kind of disclaimer information, resin coated. We can see all of this different information. Like, this is something we probably didn't record anywhere in our database, that the darkroom lighting should be light red. So this is interesting. And there are some codes on here too. So if you are very deep in a historical study of manufacturers of photographic paper, and a lot of these kind of like company codes and things like this, you can find this sort of information here. Or, if you don't know much about it, maybe you can learn a bunch about it. I mean, we could go through each one of these packages and start recording these codes, and maybe there's something interesting here, right? So this is a historical artifact, and it was designed, and it was labeled with all of these interesting labels, and there's a lot built in here. One thing we see in addition to that kind of thing is we can see on a number of these, things like prices, right? So here, RIT bookstore, Rochester Institute of Technology, probably, which makes sense. Rochester is a big photo city, and there was an original price of maybe around $15, and it got marked down to $9.45. And if you look at enough of these, and again, I mean, this would take very careful work, but if you look at enough of these, you could start to, record some data about these prices, and maybe on the assumption that these prices can be pegged to the years that we have stored in our data, and see how these like prices change over time, right? Additionally, too, when you get to an item that is in more of a box than an envelope, we photograph every side of the box, right? So when you use the up and down arrow key, well, you can click these arrows with the mouse, or you can use the keyboard arrows. This will move through all of the different angles on this box. Whereas if you have just an envelope like this, it just shows you front and back, because there's really nothing to be shown. The sides basically have no dimensionality to them. But here, when you have a box, you do have these sides, and we felt that it was important to image all of these sides, at least if there was any content on them, right? And again, a lot of this content is not recorded in our data set. A lot of it is, all of the language that was used to describe these papers is typically recorded, but there's a lot of codes on here. There's prices, there's other sorts of things. And there's just designs, right? So if you're interested in the design of these packages, you can witness it up close here. And looks like there's some interesting markings on here. If you did enough of this, enough of like looking at these markings, there might be something kind of historically interesting there. Just about, how these things were used, maybe how, um, photographers like mark up these boxes of paper. That could be something interesting. Um, or how they get marked up when they're in like a photography shop, right? But here, so this is a great starting point for digging into the history of these Agfa-Gevaert packages. Now, one thing we notice is that after we've done this filtering, right, we've looked at packages of Agfa-Gevaert, we can see this number has gone from, it used to be something like 6,898, which is our entire collection, down to 188. And you can take that subset, that filtered subset of items, and you can download all of that data by clicking the download button if you want. So if you want to say, hey, I'm really interested in these, I want to take this data, off site and work on it on my own, you're welcome to do that. So when you click this download button, there's this little modal pops up, and we ask you to read the terms of use before downloading. And legally, I probably shouldn't like summarize these terms of use. You do have to read them. But the main thing is that you cannot use this data for commercial use. You can use it for your research. You're welcome to download it, of course, but you cannot go and make money off of this. That's the general gist of it. But you should read that before downloading. And then if you say, yes, I have read the terms, then you can download, and it will allow you to, give it some name. So you could say like, Agfa Gevaert packages. Okay, and then you could go ahead and save that to the desktop. Okay. And then if we go to the desktop and we open that up, then we could, see what's in that data. And I won't do that here, but it gives you basically like something you could open in Excel. It's actually a CSV file, but you could open that in Excel, and it's going to have all of the data that you kind of see represented here in Paperbase apart from the images themselves. And if you do really want to have all of these images in kind of a huge data dump, you could probably ask us. But the easier way to do it without having to ask us is one by one, you can just download these things, right? So I opened it in a new tab. That image is there. You can save it, and there it is, right? And so anyone can do this. They're up on the internet. They're able to be downloaded. So you can save them that way. I mean, it'd be a little bit of hard work, right? In this case, because this group is so big. But if you were interested in maybe a dozen or two, it would be very doable. Now we've looked just at packages here, and I think it makes sense to also look at sample books. And so let's remove the packages and look at sample books of Agfa-Gevaert. And then, we might be interested in like how many sample books are there, and we can kind of look here. So all of the sample books are listed here, and there's only a few left. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's probably about 8 sample books, and this seems to be the biggest one. So let's take a look at it. Okay, so now there's a single sample book of Agfa-Gevaert, and here it is. And by the way, if you do this, these will be organized in the panel in order, right? So you can actually flip through this sample book page by page. This is the first page, and this is, essentially equivalent to looking through this sample book page by page. And you can go through here, and you could do this with every Agfa-Gevaert sample book. And so despite the fact that you don't have these things in your possession, you will be able to look through every page of every Agfa-Gevaert sample book that we have. And so you could do this research entirely remotely. I mean, I think, as a lab, we're open to having people, come access this stuff more directly, but you wouldn't even have to do it in a lot of cases. And again, remember, you can really zoom in on any one of these by clicking it, and it opens in a new tab, and then you get this level of zoom, right? So you can really closely examine these things too. Just like you could with the packages. Now, additionally, one other way to sort of continue your research from the starting point of Paperbase is what you can see over here. We have a um, there's a little icon here that looks like a sun. I think it's actually called a flare, right? But what this does is it opens the Lux record for our collection in the Lux viewer. So here we now have Lux open here, and we can see the Lens Media Lab's entire collection is here. And it says there's 7,249 results, and so then you can start, your search here. And so if you're interested in one of these Egg-Fugavert papers, you can look here, right? And then you can start to look at the ways that it's categorized, and then sort of look at that. So Egg for Portruga Rapid. Okay, now we have all of the Portruga Rapid produced by Egg-Fugavert. Let's look at Egg-Fugavert. Okay, so yeah, a lot of these are our papers, but like, what else? Okay, so here's something that's not in our collection, but is in Yale's collections. Industrial Radiography, created by Egg-Fugavert, and it's a text. Okay. And we can find this is a book in the Yale University Library. And so if you're interested in this aspect of photo history, you can use Lux to connect all of Yale's collections together from the starting point of the Lens Media Labs collection. And then one other thing you can do too, and let's maybe kill the sample books and go back to the packages. Well, here, let's just do that. Packages, and then let's look again at Egg-Fugavert, and then we can close this out. One thing you can do, well, here, let's add them to the panel first, and then we can close this out. Another thing you can do too that will help with historical research is to look at the backprints. And Egg-Fugavert papers tend to have backprints. There's a lot of them. So we could see here's a whole slew of them, and we can open these. Okay, so we can start looking at all of these backprints. Oh, okay. And there's little subtle differences, right? You see these lines, and then you see these dots, and there's a whole there's a whole system that they used, and we don't fully understand that system, but you can start to look at what's going on with these backprints, which prints have them. And if you open the filter panel and you're really interested in these backprints, there's actually a section of the filter panel that says backprint. And so if you want to look at a particular backprint, here, let's kill what's in the panel there. A09 looks like it has a lot of examples. And now let's add them here. Okay, so these are all A09 backprints, and you can tell that they all look quite similar. And let's get a better look at them by opening the detail panel. They have the two lines on the bottom and a kind of broken line on top, although there are slight differences, right? You see there's sort of these like two lines here, and then there's the one line there. Now, partly this may be just the printing got a little sloppy in some of these cases, or these might be true variations, but we are, in our research, we are treating these as the same backprint. And you can kind of like trace the evolution of these backprints over time. You can look at specific ones up close. And again, just like with the package images and the sample book images, any one of these that you're really interested in, you could open up in a bigger size. And here you go, right? And this is sort of like the full image. Also, then you can download all of them as well as before. So this could be an interesting starting point for an investigation like that. And so you can see how now this and this is, we've done all this even ignoring directly looking at things like gloss and color and thickness and all of those things, right? We've really just been focusing on a lot of like the image assets, the links out to Lux here, and then using the filter panel to kind of like select from a metadata perspective the subsets that you're interested in. But these are the tools we imagine that you would be using most frequently if you're doing really deep historical analysis of this collection. And remember that both your filter subsets and your selection subsets can be downloaded. So if you had filtered on a particular set of definitions, but you wanted to eliminate some of these items because you thought, I don't know, maybe some of these backprints look a little sloppy, or they're not the ones that you're interested in. You see there's these little X's in the corners of these things, and you can remove these from the panel by Xing them out. So I'm like removing a bunch of these. Okay, so let's say now this is the selection that we care about. Well, we can see the numbers are different, right? So there's the filter captures 66, but because we removed a bunch of those from the panel, now there's only 58 in the panel. And so if we want, we can download the panel selection up here instead of, you know, the filter selection down there. And we can cancel the download there. But you know, so there's download buttons on both sides of those if you want to go take the data and work with it using your own tools.